So how did we get to this point? Well, most of you know a little bit about how Meijer Gardens got going, but you may not know that our master plan, going back about 10 years, called for an international garden in the very spot that we're now planning the Japanese garden. And that was there for quite some time, and nothing was acted on it, primarily because there were 1,000 other great things going on, like building a children's garden and an amphitheater and a sculpture park and a new cafe and all that kind of stuff. Well, it was a little over 2 years ago where I was over at Meijer Corporation for a meeting. And it wasn't a meeting with Fred or Lena. I think I was probably meeting with Rob Verheulen. And on the way out, I was in the lobby of Meijer Corporation. And as I was going out, Fred was coming in. And as you always did when you ran into Fred, you started talking. And we were having a lovely conversation, which went on for a little bit. And I thought it was about wrapping up, and he says, "Oh, David, by the way, I think we should have a Japanese garden out at the gardens. What do you think of that?" And I said, "Well, I think it's a terrific idea." And he said, "Good." He said, "That'll be really great. Try not to spend too much money." And he walked away. I said, "Okay."
You're probably wondering, what does Rodin and in particular Eve have to do with a Japanese garden? And the answer in the direct is not much. But indirectly, it symbolizes everything that David said, that the true magic of this organization is the way in which art and nature, in which horticulture and sculpture come together. That's the very reason why we find ourselves as one of the 13 must-see places in the world, museums in the world, one of the 100 most visited museums in the world, and the list goes on and on and on. It's why we get the attention of the New York Times and so on and so forth. So when this opportunity came up a couple of years ago, and I went out into the world looking at Japanese gardens, I came back and said, "David, we have to make sure that there's some inclusion of sculpture. That's what we do here. And we have to do it in a way that's authentic." And, he basically stopped me in my tracks and said, "I already got you covered. It's already going to be a part of this." What I didn't know is that the challenge was going to come from the Sculpture Advisory Committee. And there are several of them that are here tonight. And the challenge to me was, you really need to think this through. And the easy route would be to say, well, we'll just go out and we'll find, X number of Japanese sculptors and then we'll place them inside. But the challenge was to think about the Japanese garden and why it has such universal appeal. It's so open and it's so welcoming, regardless of background, regardless of creed. There's no agenda. It's really a garden for everyone.
Let me tell you a little bit about Hoichi Kurisu. He's a remarkable man. He is the president and founder of Kurisu International. Hoichi was born in Hiroshima, Japan, and he witnessed the atomic bomb blast which ended World War II. And that event inspired him in the sense that he saw how nature helped people heal and recover from that tragic event. In the 1960s, he came to the United States and he worked for his father in landscape design. Later, he returned to Japan, and particular Tokyo, and studied landscape design. Came back to the United States, and from 1968 to 1972, he served as the landscape director for the Japanese Garden Society in Portland, Oregon. And then in 1972, he went out on his own and he formed his firm. And so you need to know all that important stuff about his life and his resume. But I think more importantly, you need to know that he is a gentleman's gentleman. He is a joy to work with. He listens. He explains. He has great reasoning behind every little detail in his garden. And I know from all the meetings we've had with him over the past 2 years, you're going to really enjoy his presentation tonight.
Good evening. Thank you also, David. Nice introduction. When started this project, I wished to meet Lina and Fred. David and his staff, we are intensely meeting one room. All of a sudden, door open, come here, and konnichiwa! Like a Fred, right? Wow. I thought it's, much more different way is imagining, but it's, and the whole room, as I said, brighten up. And this is something. This is what we have to continue reflect this garden, not only Japanese garden, but actually everything. So I like to share poem. I'm not a poet, but cannot help to express the feeling what I had. And the daughter is, Michiko, and I is that day is watching the changing color of the autumn maple, the tip of it, and also the evening we are having a dinner across the street in a sort of Oriental restaurant, and happened to be the moon come up, and still the feeling I had that met two of them. I like to read in Japanese. 茜さす子連れに輝く初秋の日、静かなり万物包みて月赤く、今宵満月マイヤーの庭、まして二人の愛の光、宇宙に響く山吹のごとく。The sun shining the red, turning the branches through the penetrating the trees. Be still. Everything hugging inclusively. Tonight is a full moon. Meijer's garden. More so, the two of them love is like echoing the universe. Be still. It's a lot of noise now in the world, right? But if you be still, is just like you can hear if you express the love is echoing. That's only I hear. Thank you.